permit me, I'll park the ambulances for now because I have been listening all through since morning. I've been listening to the concerns that people are raising. And we seem to be focusing on towards the end and have neglected the beginning of the whole problem. And what do I mean by that? Emergencies are a process. When an emergency happens, you are firefighting. So let's say you collapsed or you had a car crash or something of that sort. Do the people around you even know what to do? Because that's a lifesaver. That is a huge lifesaver. If the people around you know exactly what to do when you go into an emergency. And I ask myself, does the average Ghanaian know what to do to identify what an emergency is? Let's say someone is getting a stroke. Are we educating the citizens appropriately to identify the telltale signs and know what to do? At what point to call an ambulance? Do people know how to give CPR? What is the availability of civilian emergency equipment in our community? If I talk about civilian emergency equipment, availability of defibrillators that have DIY information on them that the person can use in an emergency. Does the person know how to communicate with the ambulance team? Give them relevant information as to exactly what is happening to you who is in an emergency. As Winston puts the question, assuming you are non-communicator, does the person know how to communicate with the emergency team? Does the emergency team then know how to communicate with the person as to how they need to give them relevant information and how they need to maintain you until the emergency team can get there? That's the next thing. Then how quickly will the emergency team get to you? What is our ambulance response rate? How quickly can they get to you? Because in an emergency, time is of essence. Like if you come to the UK, they'll tell you the average ambulance response rate should be 4 minutes. Between the time of the call, it should be 4 minutes. And I was listening to my colleague panelist, and he said something that is very instructive, and I'd want to commend them for that. What he talked about, rapid response. Even in the UK, Kojo, they are rapid response ambulance teams. They use saloon cars, and they have to respond within 1 minute, 30 seconds. Because when it happens and the main ambulance is coming, sometimes they are located, they are running local to the community. So once the call comes, they can tell them, and they are more highly skilled. So they can rush quickly to the scene while the main ambulance comes, or if it's, say, a car crash, while an air ambulance is called. So that is the next level. How quickly would that ambulance get to you? Then when the ambulance gets to you, how quickly would you be stabilized? And while they are transporting you to the health facility, what is the communication between that ambulance and the health facility? And when you get to the health facility, how quickly can you be transferred? Then more importantly, who can give information about any medical conditions you, the patient, has to either the ambulance team or the health facility? These are key. They are extremely key to your survival. So now that I've addressed that, because I was listening and everyone could hear people say, oh, I went in a car. I heard someone talk about, the nurses, he wanting them to check whether the patient was pregnant. Most often, that is a standard question in an emergency they would ask. Could the patient be pregnant? It is not that the ambulance team do not know, but if they do know, they need to act in a particular way because they are then saving 2 people and not 1. So they ask to elicit the information assuming you know. That doesn't necessarily mean they are incapable of finding the information themselves. So then, now let's get to the ambulances. My colleague says we have, let's say, about 300 ambulances working, assuming we add the 20 rapid response that he's talking of, for 33 million people. Kojo, that means 1 ambulance to over 30,000 people, if my mathematics is right.
To 300. Yeah.
Sorry, to over 10,000 people, if my mathematics is right. That is a huge, tall order. So though, picture the scenarios, though there might be an ambulance station in almost every district, and hopefully with a functioning ambulance, should there be a situation where two emergencies, and these things can happen easily. Somebody can have an accident, somebody can then have a heart attack, and someone can have an asthma attack in 10,000 people. Because you are
Kwame,
talking
it's
about...
It's actually 100,000. Okay, one ambulance.
Yes, that was 100,000. Yes. So in 100,000 people, you are talking about 3 emergencies happening in one go, which is about what percentage? Less than 1%. And you have one ambulance in that district. It means 2 are going to go without. It also means in that district, should there be a car crash and it is a public transport, they would have to scramble for ambulances from other closer districts.
Yeah.
Or go in private cars and stuff like that. Would the people transporting these people to the health facility know how to even handle them while they transport them to the health facility without worsening the emergency they find themselves? So why am I looking at the background and surrounding? What I'm trying to say is, it seems to me as a society, we haven't scratched the surface of emergency management.
Yeah.
To the best of our ability. I take on board the fact that the ambulance service started after the May 9 disaster and all that. That's fine. But we are talking of almost 2 decades ago. So if we haven't made significant strides in educating the public around all these things, and you see, we shouldn't leave it at the doorstep of the National Ambulance Service, because Kojo, it's you and it's I. And when you guys asked that I come in as a panelist, I was looking at the Nice Health Assessment Report for Ghana. And Kojo, you have a copy. And if you see that they tell you that even amongst our hospitals, how many of our emergency practitioners have had standard training in the last 2 years?